What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a very important day as we have CPI coming out, what the data is suggesting about CPI, and what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and this offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the market. I want to note something very important. SPY had this very nice looking bullish wedge that led to a breakout. We broke above 475 and saw the buyers continue to push us towards this very important resistance at this 477.5 zone. And if anything, we look bullish on SPY, we look bullish on the QQQ, we look bullish on Aapl solely based off technicals. Okay, so it's favoring the bulls on the charts. However, the bulls are not only going to be deciding everything based off charts because the CPI is going to be a massive factor. So I want to focus on CPI, what it's suggesting, what this means for the markets before I break down these charts. CPI, if anything, is going to be more impactful than just technicals. So for CPI, it's coming out tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens. Okay, that's going to be very important. At 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you have to be prepared for this because it's going to cause the market to make a very big move, in my opinion. For CPI, year over year, this is for all items, we're expecting it to be either the same or a very slight increase. 3.1 to 3.2% is what we're expecting. The previous report was 3.1%. Now, the data I have suggests that it's going to be very close to what we previously got, so it shouldn't be that far off. So that's going to be very important. Now, we also have core CPI year over year around we're expecting it to be between 3.8 and 3.9%. The previous report was 4%. So we're expecting a slight decrease in core CPI and a slight increase, if not the same number, for all items CPI. We have the chart right here. So this is the CPI chart, basically. The purple line is core CPI right here. And then the blue one is all items CPI. Core CPI is all items without food and energy, by the way. So for core CPI without food and energy included, we're expecting a slight decrease. A 0.1 to 0.2% decrease is what we're expecting. For all items, we're expecting either the same thing or a slight little 0.1% increase. We'll have to wait and see what it is. The data I have suggests that CPI for all items is going to be either the same or very close to where we are. So maybe 1 point above, 0.1 points above, or 0.1 points below, very close to what we got previously based off what I'm seeing in the data. So let me show you some data. When it comes to gas prices, we actually got a slight decrease. It wasn't that crazy. Gas prices on average were about $3.44 for the month of November. And then they went down to $3.25. So a very slight itty bitty decrease happened in energy, at least for the month of December. Now, historically, this is just to show you guys the correlation between these different factors. There's a high correlation between oil prices and inflation. This has a big effect on different sectors out there, and historically, this is still the case. Now, if you look at what happened with the more modern data, you guys can see this high correlation between them. This is actually not just based off oil prices, but crude futures. So based off crude futures, we actually have more data that's very important. I have the data for December already for crude futures, and you could see how similar this tends to be with CPI. CPI's data ends in November so far. The data for December comes out tomorrow. Let me show you. They had a tendency of pushing together, coming down together, pushing together, trading sideways together, dropping, pushing, and then dropping together. What could I tell you about this that's so important? Well, notice that for CPI, we got about, for November, it was at, actually, let's start off with October. October CPI was 3.2%. Crude was at 86, right? For November, CPI was at 3.1, crude was at 77. For December, crude has dropped to 72. So there's been a slight drop in crude down to 72, which suggests that CPI might actually get a slight decrease from 3.1% to about 3 or so. But in my opinion, crude is not the only factor affecting this. There could be other factors that affect it too. But there's a very good chance, and here's how I see it, that CPI is going to be close to what we got from before because oil prices actually dropped. Now, this is based off the data we have right now. If we get some decent data, it will affect the Fed's policies. we're still expecting, from what I'm looking at, a 0.75 percent decrease in the Fed funds futures rates, or 75 basis points worth of cuts. That's what we're still expecting. This could change depending on CPI, so make sure you're prepared for this. The market's also very close to extreme greed. We're still back in this very critical level. We'll see what happens after CPI. So once again, as a reminder, okay, if CPI is too hot, that's going to be bearish. If it's too cool, it's going to be, if it's very cool, it's going to be a little bullish, right? So in my opinion, I'm not too sure about core CPI. It's going to likely be very close to what we got previously from what I'm looking at. I think 3.9 to 3.8% is very reasonable for core. So it might be close or as expected. But for CPI for all items, right here, we're expecting it to be 3.2% or 3.1%. The previous report is 3.1%. My data suggests it's going to be around 3.1%. I don't know for sure. This number is very manipulated, but that's what I'm seeing based off the oil data. So that suggests there's a good chance we'll get an as expected CPI, and things will be as expected, close to expectations, if not even a tiny bit lower. That means, this favors the market. Like, as long as the market doesn't like tank off of that, I mean, there's a good chance the market might not hate the data. There's a very, very good chance of that. So this might actually favor the bulls a bit more, but I'm not going to promise anything. It all depends on the data, of course. This is very simple. So if we get a decent CPI or a low CPI, there's a good chance that SPY could be pushing back up to 478. If we break this, we're going to break our highs from December. We could see this thing get very close to 480 and approach the all-time highs on SPY. If we get a hot CPI, if my data is off or something happens, although this is looking a little less likely, if CPI is very hot somehow, this thing could retrace back down towards 474 at least, this breakout area, and then all the way back down to 470 we go. Okay, so we'll be watching what CPI brings. The odds favor a decent CPI from what I'm looking at, so this might hold up if not push more, but just to be safe, always be prepared, right? Always be prepared for anything just to be safe. Technicals on the QQQ look bullish. We have a rising wedge-like structure, but I'm not going to focus too much just on that. Uh, a good CPI could push this all the way up and invalidate this rising wedge, push this up towards 412 again. A bad CPI, if it's too hot, hotter than the expectations I called out, could bring this back down to 406 or even below that, to 404 to 402. So I'm open-minded to anything. I always am open-minded to anything, guys. But the technicals favor the upside, and the data I have does suggest a decent CPI is coming. It doesn't mean that CPI is going to be much lower than expected, just close to expectations. So once again, it favors the upside a slightly bit more, but just to be safe, let's wait and see. For Tesla, unfortunately, guys, Tesla's not looking that great. We ended up closing below our daily 200 EMA. It tried to bounce off this pennant and ended up failing. Poor little Tesla is just kind of stuck like this at this very, very low area. Very sad to see. I want to call out that on the daily time frame on Tesla, we had our daily 200 EMA as support. We closed just barely below that, and that's a bearish signal. So technicals look weak. Tesla's looking very weak, very bearish, relatively weak. So it does favor the downside from a technical standpoint. But, technicals are not everything. It also depends on CPI. If we get a decent CPI, Tesla could try to push back up to 238 technically if CPI is really good and Tesla follows the market and the trend. If Tesla, CPI is not that great, Tesla's going to be sinking towards 230, if not 228. And from technicals, it does favor some weakness, getting close to 230 again. So if anything, the odds do favor the downside for Tesla just based off technicals and such. But if Tesla tries to follow the markets, if it tries to make a comeback, if it could try to hold above the 200 EMA on the daily time frame, there's a chance it could try to rebound to 238. This will depend heavily on CPI, of course, so we'll just wait and see. But I do want to note that Tesla looks relatively weak as of right now, so be careful with it. For Nvda, if CPI launches the whole market, including Nvda, higher, this thing will easily try to hit 550. We have a bullish wedge developing. It looks bullish now as it's pushing in the after hours. So 550 plus is likely coming if we end up breaking out. If we're bearish on Nvidia and CPI is not the best and the market sinks, it could be retracing to 540 all over again, if not 538 and then 533. Just to be safe, although it looks bullish, we're going to be watching our data just to be safe and see how it goes. That's it for everything except for Aapl. I'm going to call out Aapl, then I'm going to break down more charts. Aapl, from a technical standpoint, okay, it looks bullish. This is forming a nice cup and handle. It resembles a cup and handle like formation. It looks bullish to me. It looks like the odds favor a push up to 188 plus. But just to be safe, I'm not going to promise that. I can't promise anything. It depends on CPI. If CPI leads to the market launching up, 188 is going to be our target. It might try to break that. If we get a rug pull on Aapl, it's going to be coming back down to 185 or below that, and potentially back down towards 182. What do I think Aapl is going to do? I think it depends on CPI. I don't know what CPI is going to be, guys. I'm sorry. But I do favor, from the technical standpoint, the upside a little bit more. I don't know for sure, but I do favor that based off the different factors I called out and other factors like that. So that's it for my analysis, at least for the main five. Now let's just talk about a couple more tickers. Rivian had a very flat day, kind of pushed a little bit. Now it's kind of stuck. A decent CPI could push this to 20. Not so good CPI, we're going back down to 18.5 or so. So if I got a little bounce, we were actually projecting this to bounce a bit. We're actually testing our 50 EMA around 8.46. We actually closed just barely above that. A decent CPI can help this push up to 8.8. A hot CPI will take this down to about $8, if not 7.86. We're in the middle, so we'll see which way it goes. For the IWM, if we're bullish, you want to see this thing basically break above 197. If it breaks above that, we could be pushing to fill this gap up here. This gap would take this up to about 199. So a bullish move would be 197 break. A bearish move would be us losing this wick right here around 193.5 and pushing back down towards 192. It all depends on CPI. It's very indecisive, so we'll just have to wait and see. Microsoft looks bullish. Very, very nice break. We got some bullish news. Looks bullish on the daily. Could be looking for a retest of 384 plus to try to get up to 385. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 376. If we lose that, 373 or below is coming. This looks bullish, however. So we'll see if CPI helps this push more. So we'll wait and see. AMD, we got this rejection off 150. If we try to turn back to bullish, we could try to break above 151. If we're bearish, 145 is coming. It depends on CPI. We're looking like we're just starting to reject a bit, but it might just chop around for now, and we'll see what CPI brings. For Netflix, if we're bullish, you want to see this thing try to break towards 490. For bearish, you want to see it lose this support right here at 473 and come back down towards 462. This depends on CPI. It's looking a little weaker on the daily, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see what CPI brings. On the dollar index, just want to mention this is kind of flat right now. We will see if the dollar is forming an inverse head and shoulders and about to push up to 103.7. Will CPI launch the dollar up, or is the dollar going to reject and come back down to grab liquidity at 101.5? This will depend on CPI. I want to call out one more thing. We have the VIX right here. I already drew this out earlier, but I just want to show you guys again. The VIX is at support right now. Let me show you the VIX. We have this support on the hourly time frame. We'll see if we get a bounce on the VIX to drag the market down, or if the VIX gets a big rejection, comes back down to the support, and then breaks out. If it gets this big move down, the market could push a little bit more, so don't forget about that on the VIX. It all depends on CPI, of course. Coinbase is starting to push up. We're looking at some more news coming out involving the SEC and the new Bitcoin ETF. This could explode very, very quickly and start to fill lots of these imbalances. Back up to 173 plus. I'm going to wait until tomorrow morning before saying anything else about Coinbase, or at least until tomorrow. We're still waiting for some more news about the regulations. If we're bearish, even after CPI 135 is coming, if there's bad news involving the regulations as well, 135 is our target. If there's good news, 170 is likely coming as well. This thing might explode and go parabolic. We will see if that ends up being the case. For Google, if we're bullish, going to be looking for a move up to this resistance. Let me show you where it was. We're going back. Hold on. I have to go really far back to show you, but it doesn't really matter. We have resistance at 145. We break that. I remember it's 147 is going to be our next target. If we're bearish, we're going to be coming back down towards 141. As of right now, we're kind of stuck up here. We'll see what CPI brings. For Amazon, if we're bullish, going to be looking for a push, not just to 155, but I think 160 is going to be our target if CPI launches this up. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 150. If it loses that, 146 is coming. We have a gap down there to fill as well. It looks very bullish on the daily. It might push up higher. So just to be safe, we'll wait and see. I think we also have a potential. Is this a cup and handle? It kind of resembles a cup and handle like formation, but not entirely. So are we going to launch to 160 or come down to 145? Depends on CPI. Same thing for Meta. I called out some upside potential on Meta yesterday. If you look at the weekly on Meta, looking pretty strong as we're just continuing to break out. If this thing keeps going, we have this target up here at 384. If we're bullish, we could approach 380, then 384. If we get a big launch thanks to CPI and other factors. If we're bearish, you want to see this thing basically break down towards 354, back down to the 20 EMA, and also the 5 EMA. I would say that I'm in the middle right now on Meta. It depends on CPI, but it does look bullish from a technical standpoint. 380 is a real possibility. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Hopefully this video was insightful about CPI. It's going to most likely be decent from what I'm seeing. But just to be safe, we will see what the data suggests. So I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Get ready for the CPI report, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow morning for the next update of the day. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, and peace out.